Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So my name is Kate Monfette. I'm the Director of Communications of Minister François-Philippe Champagne, the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities. And I'm with my colleague, Alex Howell, who's our Manager for Operations and Communications. Hello. So just giving people a couple minutes maybe to get ready since we just started. So we wanted to offer these hopefully short and straightforward trainings, so that because as you know, we're getting closer and closer to election date. It's a year from now, and we need to remember that as a government, we'll need to answer as to the commitments we made 4 years ago. One of them being to invest historic amounts in infrastructure. So people will be, looking to us to see if we've delivered, but also if all that money that we committed to spend has actually had results across the country. So as you are trying to work towards the election to get your MP reelected, we wanted to make sure you felt like you had all the tools necessary to promote infrastructure, specifically for your riding, but also to allow your member of parliament to take ownership for these investments and for the results that they brought. So let's get started. I assume everyone can see the deck. If there's any issue, you can please flag it to us in the questions. So this is a quick overview of a reminder of what the infrastructure plan is. So it's called Investing in Canada. It's a 12-year plan that's 186 or 7 billion over 12 years. The plan was initially created in the budget 2016. We put it forward in 2 phases. There was the first phase that was like a short-term phase for a shovel-ready project that was more focused on repair, recapitalization, modernization of existing infrastructure. And now we just finalized agreements for 10 years with all the provinces and territories for the rest of the funding. So the areas of focus of this plan are public transit, green infrastructure, social infrastructure, trade and transportation, and rural and northern communities. And there's also a Smart Cities Challenge as part of the plan, the Canada Infrastructure Bank that delivers 15 billion of that plan. We launched this year the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund, and we'll be announcing the first recipients in the spring. And that's pretty much it. So this plan, the 180+ billion, is delivered by a few departments, one of them being Infrastructure Canada, but we're not the only ones. For example, NRCan is part of it, delivering some electric vehicle charging station. Environment Canada and Parks Canada are delivering some part of the green infrastructure stream. Minister Duclos at ESDC, at Employment Social Development Canada, Families and Children, is delivering a big chunk of the social infrastructure with their housing component. And Transport Canada is delivering on the trade and transportation aspects. So this is just a quick overview of what the plan is and a reminder. If you have any more questions, there's a lot of answers on our website, or you can always communicate with our office if you'd like to understand the plan a little bit better. So on the Infrastructure Canada's website, there's a Geomap, which is like an interactive map that shows you the project under the Investing in Canada plan. So if you're not familiar with it, I strongly encourage that you spend a little bit of time just going through it and looking at your province, region, city, community, to see where the investments have gone. So far, this is the best tool we have. We'll demonstrate in more details a little bit later in the presentation, but it's really like the one place where you can find all of our investments for all the departments involved. Some departments, their information is updated quite regularly. Some others, quarterly. Some others maybe a little bit less frequently. So it's not perfect, but at this point, it's the best kind of visual, user-friendly representation that we were able to come forward with. So I mentioned that we finalized bilateral agreements with all the provinces and territories for the next decade of funding, approximately. The amounts included in these agreements, and this is Infrastructure Canada only funding, just important to to note. So because I work at infrastructure, it's easier for me to really go into details about what we deliver. So our bilateral agreements are 33.3 billion nationally. So there's just a little bit more than 20 billion in public transit, 9 billion in green infrastructure, 1.3 in community culture and rec, and 2.4 billion in rural and northern communities, 400 million being the Arctic Energy Fund that is for the territories to help them move off diesel. So this is what falls under our agreements with the provinces and territories. One thing that's always interesting to remind people as something that we've done that we hope is helping communities is that we've changed the cost sharing in terms of federal contribution. In the past, the federal government had mostly provided 1/3 of the funding for infrastructure projects, so split equally with the province and the municipalities. But recognizing that local governments, especially smaller communities, often have limited fiscal capacity, we decided to step it up in terms of our federal share. So in the first phase of our plan, we were funding 50% for most of the project. The cost share that you see on your screen right now are the cost share under the new bilateral agreements, so for the next 10 years approximately. So 50% contributions for provincial projects, for rehabilitation projects under the public transit stream, and for rural and northern communities. However, for communities smaller than 5,000 people, we're contributing up to 60%, which is a big increase. And given that if the provinces provide their 33%, that means only 7% for the local governments to contribute, which is a big relief for them and allows them to fund more projects. 40% will be what we contribute to most like big, large-scale transformative projects like new transit systems or larger projects. And 75% when it's an Indigenous recipient, and 25% when there's a private partner involved. Also, in the territories, however, it's 75% on all projects. That's been the case historically. Just a quick note here that is sometimes more of a political challenge is that those of you guys who were around for the 2015 election, the Prime Minister really ran on a platform that was about empowering local decision making, so empowering local governments to prioritize and make decisions as to the projects that have a bigger impact on their communities, because our messaging has always been that local governments know better how to have a real impact locally. So we really created this plan based on this principle. So we consulted extensively and worked with our partners, with the SDM, with the municipalities, with the province, and developed these programs. So under our agreements, the projects have to be prioritized by the provinces in consultation with the municipalities. So basically the municipalities submit their projects to the provinces and territories, who then send us a list of projects for approval, or one project at a time. It really varies. So it is challenging in the way that we don't impose projects on our partners, and sometimes, you know, our politicians like to have their pet projects. They're things that are very close to their heart and that they really want to get funding for. However, there's a way to really make that work, which is that you should make sure that you communicate with our office and the regional desk in our office for your region to make sure that we are aware of what those priorities are for you, so that whenever we have conversations with our partners, we can make sure that it's part of the conversation and it's on the table, and we can make sure that it's on their radar. Also, if your MP works closely with their municipal and provincial counterpart, making sure that they advocate for their local projects. However, you know, there are limits. You know, if the municipality doesn't want to prioritize this municipal project, I mean, we cannot unilaterally fund a municipal project without the municipal support or provincial support. But please do make sure as the election comes closer to be in touch with our office so that we're aware of what those local priorities are for you and we can track them. Yes, so the reason why we're here today, promoting projects in your riding. So how can we empower you guys to show results and show how your MP has delivered for their community. So our infrastructure plan has 3 major goals, which is to create growth and jobs for the middle class, create inclusive communities, build inclusive communities, and also support a low carbon green economy. So we'll need to demonstrate that we have done that and that we've created results for communities and that people can see an impact in their lives through those investments. So we've been working with the LRB and the Prime Minister's office to see how we can best support you, and hopefully today gives you some tools, and also we'll have more as the months go by, and we'll provide you with more and more tools so that you feel better and better equipped, and you can start accumulating content for the next election. So identifying projects. So I mentioned the map a little bit earlier, so allow me to just actually go on the map here. So the map itself looks like this. So it's the map of Canada with all of the projects. So let's go to Toronto. Toronto's a good example because there's a lot of projects, but also there's some challenges with the map that we can kind of show. So you can zoom in as close as you want, and you can see all of the bubbles of the projects that have been funded under our plan in this area. So you can click on them, and you can see the name of the project. Click on details, you can see who's delivering on this. So if you're interested in promoting this project, you should be in touch with Canadian Heritage if you want more details, or if you want to find out more about what this project is and when it happened and all of this. So when I was saying the map isn't perfect, is that if, for example, your MP is from a suburban area, if you're like from a little bit outside of the downtown core, for example, if we purchased 1,000 buses, which we did for the TTC, there'll be only one bubble, and it'll probably be on the transit garage or on City Hall. So you need to kind of keep an eye out for those bubbles that serve way larger than where the actual bubble is. So transit is a good example where it will mostly be on City Hall or on the transit authority headquarters. However, it serves all of the suburban area. Wastewater treatment plants could be a good example also, where if there's been a major upgrade, maybe more in a small community, it serves the very kind of large region and not just where the treatment plant is. So you may want to sort of look outside of your community and outside of your riding a little bit to sort of see what's around and see if those have an impact on your community. Some other things where we don't have the information is, for example, if you want to tell a story about the fact that we're funding, women's shelter, we do not identify the locations of those projects on the map. So those are funded by Minister Duclos' office. So if you're interested in knowing if there's some in your communities that have received funding, you should absolutely contact their office, and they can tell you like how many or what the funding is and everything, but we do not provide locations for those for obvious reasons. So this is how you can find the project. So you can build kind of a list with those projects. If you look below the map here, you can download also the map data. If you want to play with it, you can do some searches here to find, like if you type in the name of your city, you'll get the list below of everything in that city. You can sort by departments. If you only want to see, Infrastructure Canada projects, you can see it here. If you want to see only public transit projects, you can unclick the other ones, and you can just really focus on that area of interest. So go check it out and spend a little bit of time, get to know what's in your region. If obviously you may be aware of other projects that have gotten funding that is not in this, so make sure that you keep that updated in your personal files also. And if you find mistakes on the map, please do tell us. Please do flag those for us, because it happens sometimes. When our department inserts the Geomap information like latitude and longitude, sometimes there's little typos and the projects are just not in the right spot. So we can make sure that we fix that, and it's done pretty quickly. What is it? Just to show the, not show it.
Start from the current slide. Over.
Sorry.
Oh, the second.
Oh, sorry, guys. Did I lose my? Okay. Great. So also, it's a good reminder that, you know, when we announce infrastructure funding, yes, we do a funding announcement. We invite media, there's a podium, and there's speaking opportunities and all of this, and you know, and politicians really like to do those. But it's important to remember that infrastructure projects often spend, you know, weeks and months and sometimes years when they're very big. So once the announcement is done, you know, most people will forget. They'll forget that the federal government was involved, that we funded this project. Also, mostly because the projects are managed by are run by like the city or the province. They'll forget that the federal government is involved. So it's good to remind people as the project evolves. So every now and then, you know, if there's an important project in your community, go back and see the progress, do a little video, update people on where things are at. Even if your project is completed, it's good to show the results. It's like it's bringing to the community and see how we delivered, and like, so there's many opportunities for each infrastructure project to demonstrate our involvement and to remind people that we made these investments for them. So once you've gone on the Geomap and sort of looked at what projects are in your riding, try to prioritize the ones you want to highlight. Sometimes it may be obvious because it's that one really big project in your riding that everyone talks about. But sometimes, you know, there's a good story to be told. If you're not sure what the story is and which project has a good story to tell, you can contact our office and we can help you with that. But try to pick, you know, like a project that is visually interesting, that has a good backdrop where, you know, if your MP stands there, it looks good outside or it's inside, but there's activity, there's people running around, moving around, that's always interesting. Or a project that address like a major local issue, like flooding, or like if, you know, there's a road widening where there was always congestion and now it's helping relieve congestion. So try to find those interesting angles that tell like a human story, because it's not just about the dollar figure. It's not just about how big and how, sometimes it's about the construction jobs, but sometimes it's about the outcome and the quality of life that the project actually brings. So yes, those projects with like hard hats and boots and construction sites are very fun visually, but you may not have those in your riding. It may be a little more subtle, or, you know, you may not be able to go at an active work site. However, there's usually a good story, a good human story to be told. So you just have to identify what those are. So here are some examples when we did our infrastructure weeks in the past of some MPs who participated. So just I can go through these fast. Again, like here, you know, and here, we don't really see active construction or anything, but it tells a local story about something that's important to your MP and to the community, and something that affects their lives and makes a difference. And here's a good example of how we can promote a project that's completed. This one is, it's a bus purchase, so obviously that's pretty instantaneous, but you can show that they're now in service, they're now, you know, improving people's quality of lives, and like there's a story to be told even once the project is completed.
So we do a lot of site visits at infrastructure. Our minister spends usually at least 3 weeks, sometimes more than that, on the road each month around the country. He does do obviously new announcements, and our parliamentary secretary does new announcements, but most of what we do on the road is visiting projects that have already been announced and are underway or are completed. So we've got a lot of experience in setting up these site visits. The first thing you really need to do is to reach out to the municipal contacts. So whether that's your councillor or the public works department or the mayor, depending on the size of the city and, you know, the relationships you have there. Let them know that you're thinking about going to see a project. Ask if they can give you an update of exactly what's happening there. They may tell you, you know, that's not a great project to go see. There's not a lot happening, but have you thought about going to see this one instead? So they will usually have the best advice on what is going to be best for you to go see and what will end up being most impactful. It's also an opportunity to sort of invite, let's say, the mayor to come with you or the project manager or something like that, who can show your MP around and kind of give some feedback on exactly what's happening. As Kate mentioned, some of the infrastructure projects in your riding may take years to complete. So one thing you can certainly think about doing is going on a regular basis to go and see a major project in the riding, continue to show progress on what's happening. And one thing we would just remind everybody is that people don't really remember who's responsible for what and whether or not the federal government has contributed to something. So just because your boss made an announcement and went to see something once does not mean you can't go back again and again and again. They will forget immediately that you've said we're going here. And so the more repetition you put out there, the more likely it is that they're going to associate those investments with your member.
And so what can you do with those side visits? You can do it just for you, like to either for social media activity and engagement. You can do it so you can do a 10%er or householder after. Another way is if you have a local weekly paper or like a local small media outlet, you can reach out to them and say, hey, we're going to visit this. Would you like to come? So it gives them kind of an exclusive look at the progress on the project and have a chance to take photos for their archives or even for an article. They may not end up publishing right away, but it's good to have your boss in an active kind of work site or engage with the community. And oftentimes, they'll be interested to just tag along, and they may have questions on something different also, but it's still a good opportunity to connect and get your boss in some interesting shots for the local paper. So if you're going mostly for yourself, so to build some either content for the next election so that when the time comes and you don't have time to do that anymore, you can pull those photos and show what your member has been active doing in the community. Or if you want to do it just for social media, for engagement, for your MP, it's important to be able to get good pictures. So I know that the LRB is working on a training for you guys to later in December with the Prime Minister's photographer to kind of next week. It's next week. So you probably have that information. If you don't, reach out to the LRB. To kind of it's important to get a nice photo, to get something that's a little bit more interactive, that's engaging, that shows like the human side of your boss. So try to, as much as possible, avoid the lineup of politicians in a very stiff standing position. And, take a lot of photos. If out of the 50 you take, there's one that's good, there's no waste. You can erase the other ones and, there's no harm. So just take a lot in different settings and different angles, move around, try to get them not to be blurry. But the more practice you get, the better you'll get at it. And try to get, like that genuine interaction where, if you're going to a community center with kids playing, if your boss speaks to kids, obviously with kids, be sensitive to not, take their face in the middle of the shot. You can take an angle where you see their back and your MP engaging with them, or you can show your boss with the city manager who's in charge of the project, or with some construction workers. So just try to have fun with it a little bit and put them, a little bit out of their politician comfort zone to show them more as like people and part of the community. You can also do videos. Same thing, either for social media or just for your future use during the campaign. So videos, what can be good also is to put someone else in there, not just your MP in front of a backdrop, but like have your MP ask a couple of questions to the person who's in charge of the project or to someone who's benefiting from the project, so that it's a little bit more engaging, there's more participation, but also talk to the person who's actually passionate about it and who really cares, and the person that it makes a real difference in their life, and it makes for a more engaging and more interactive video. That's the video. So in the coming weeks, we'll be also sharing, some examples of shareables you can work on when you do these visits, or 10%ers, householders. So we'll be unrolling those in the new year. So you can keep an eye out and play with those templates and everything. But you shouldn't wait to start planning, those site visits. If you want to plan one a month until the election. It's not that many actually. Or if you want to start contacting the city to know what's the construction timeline for this important project, make sure you plan so that you get like a visit while it's being built, and you plan for when it is actually built. So you get like 2 visits on that project. So start building a little bit of a schedule on what it is that you want to showcase in the next few months so that you can have all that content ready in time for the election. So we hope that was helpful, and we hope that you're going to be able to kind of run with this on your own. And if you have any questions, our office that's what we're here for. We're always very available, and we can help you find, that good human story behind infrastructure projects. We can help you find more details about that infrastructure project. If you're not sure how to contact the proponent for the project, we can help you on that as well. So, does anyone have any questions? Should I say that? So we will post the webinar on the info lab after, with the deck also. So if you guys want to take a look later and to remind yourselves and everything, and if you don't know how to reach us, ask the LRB. They'll be able to give you our contact information. And thank you to everyone who was here.